Somewhere inside a fenced-off proving ground used for Toyota's early-stage development testing, there's a camper that almost nobody outside the program has been allowed to walk around freely. It hasn't been given an official launch date. It doesn't have a confirmed price. But it does have a name that's already circulating among the small group of testers and suppliers who've seen it in person. The Toyota TerraX Mini Camper 4x4. And 3 separate people who've stood next to this thing have used almost the exact same sentence to describe it. It looks impossible for something this size to hide what it's hiding. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that means. If hidden prototypes and early spy details are the kind of thing you come back for, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because what's inside this build is not what most people expect from something built this small. Start with the outside, because the outside is deliberately misleading. Reports describe the TerraX riding on a shortened 4-door cab with a raised composite shell behind it, stretching to somewhere around 17 feet bumper to bumper and just over 7 feet wide with the mirrors folded in. Short enough to fit inside a standard driveway, which is apparently the entire point of the project. Ground clearance is being quoted at just over 11 inches, sitting on 30-inch all-terrain tires wrapped around dark forged wheels. The body is reportedly finished in a matte, canyon-toned wrap rather than a painted panel, chosen specifically because it hides trail scratches instead of showing every one of them. Rock sliders run the full length of the rocker panels, a winch-ready front bumper carries integrated recovery points, and a slim LED bar sits low across the grille instead of stacked up top, which keeps the roofline from looking bulkier than it already is. A small snorkel intake has reportedly been spotted on one test mule running alongside the A-pillar, though sources disagree on whether that's a production feature or just a testing precaution for water crossing evaluations. Walk down the side, and the proportions start doing something unusual. The greenhouse, the glass area, sits noticeably higher than the belt line below it, which early testers say makes the cabin feel far more open than the exterior footprint suggests it should. A fold-out awning arm is mounted just above the rear wheel well. An exterior shower spigot is tucked behind a magnetic access panel near the rear door, and 2 lockable gearboxes sit built into the lower rocker area. One sized for recovery boards, the other apparently sized for nothing in particular, which several early reviewers have pointed out feels like wasted space on a build this tight on room. It's a fair critique. When every inch matters this much, an empty compartment is the kind of thing you notice. The side mirrors themselves fold flush against the body, a small but deliberate touch on something meant to squeeze through narrow Forest Service roads. Around back, a fold-down ladder leads up to a small flat section of roof deck rated, according to one leaked spec sheet, for a single standing adult. Twin taillights sit recessed into the composite shell rather than bolted on, and a swing-out spare tire carrier doubles as a mount for a folding table. The rear door itself, hinged on the side rather than lifting up, swings out wide enough that parking nose in at a fuel station could get awkward in tight quarters. Small compromise, but it's there. None of that, though, is really the story. What's underneath the floor is. Climb into the cabin first, and the layout feels closer to a well-equipped pickup than anything you'd expect from a camper this size. Seats are upholstered in a weather-resistant textile rather than leather. The dashboard carries a digital gauge cluster instead of analog dials, and a bank of physical switches, not buried in a touchscreen menu, controls the auxiliary lighting, the locking differential, and the low-range transfer case. Seating position sits noticeably higher than a standard passenger vehicle, giving a clear view over the hood on tight trails, and a shallow storage cubby ahead of the passenger seat is reportedly sized specifically for a laptop. Under the hood, testing mules have reportedly been running a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder, paired with an electrified assist motor, with people close to the program putting output somewhere around 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. Numbers still unconfirmed, still subject to change before anything reaches production. A low-range transfer case and a locking rear differential are said to be standard rather than optional, which would be unusual for something in this size class. Approach angle is being quoted at roughly 34 degrees, departure angle around 27, and one tester described crawling it down a rutted fire road without the underbody ever making contact. On the road, early drive notes described the ride as noticeably firmer than a standard pickup, a byproduct of the reinforced frame needed to carry the camper shell, though most testers seem to consider that a reasonable trade for the added rigidity off-road. Fuel economy figures haven't been finalized, but people who've seen early testing logs are citing something in the neighborhood of 21 miles per gallon combined, with a roughly 19-gallon tank suggesting a real-world range somewhere around 380 to 400 miles between fill-ups. Here's the number that matters most, though, and it's the one worth remembering for later in this video. According to early field notes shared by someone involved in off-grid testing, the TerraX has reportedly managed 11 straight days away from a hookup. Running lights, water pump, fridge, and induction cooktop, without needing a single external charge. 11 days, unhooked, self-sufficient. For something this compact, that number alone is what's been driving most of the online chatter. There's a catch, though. That 11-inch clearance and taller stance come with a real cost. Anyone planning to park this inside a standard residential garage is going to want to measure the door opening twice before assuming it'll fit. Step inside and the math stops making sense in a good way. The dinette folds flat into a bed wide enough for 2 adults without anyone hanging off the edge. And the cushions are reportedly finished in the same weather-resistant textile as the front seats, chosen so a wet jacket doesn't ruin the upholstery. Warm-toned cabinetry lines both walls, broken up by a 2-burner induction cooktop, a stainless prep sink with a manual foot pump for water saving, and a compact 3.1 cubic foot fridge tucked beneath the counter. Overhead cabinets use magnetic push latches instead of standard hinges, apparently to stop them rattling open on washboard roads. Behind a sliding door sits a wet bath, toilet and shower sharing one sealed compartment, with a fold-down shower wall and a drain routed directly into the gray tank. Small, but fully enclosed, which matters more than it sounds like it should when you're 3 days into a trip. Looking at this, it feels less like sitting inside a vehicle and more like someone took an entire cabin, shrank it down piece by piece, and somehow forgot to shrink how comfortable it feels once the door closes behind you. And then there's the detail almost nobody mentions in the early write-ups. Tucked against the rear window is a single fold-out reading nook, barely wide enough for one person, with its own reading light and a small shelf for a mug. It wasn't in any of the marketing renders. It shows up almost by accident in one leaked walkthrough video. But multiple early testers have independently called it their favorite square foot in the whole build, which says something about how the rest of the interior was designed. Above the dinette, a pop-top section reportedly opens to reveal a second sleeping platform, canvas-walled, with its own skylight vent and a 3-inch memory foam pad, meant for a child or a second traveler who doesn't mind climbing a step to get to bed. The main bed below is quoted at a 4-inch foam mattress, thinner than a home mattress by design, since every extra inch of loft eats into headroom for whoever's sleeping in the pop-top above. The technology inside leans toward function over flash. A center touchscreen handles climate and lighting and, more usefully, gives live readouts of battery percentage, fresh water level, and gray water capacity, all viewable from a phone app without leaving the driver's seat. One supplier familiar with the build sheet has said the battery management software was pulled almost directly from Toyota's existing hybrid passenger lineup, which, if true, would explain why testers keep describing the house battery as recharging noticeably faster off-solar than most comparable off-grid setups. Reported specs point to a 220-watt rooftop solar array feeding a lithium battery bank estimated around 2.4 kilowatt-hours, alongside a 22-gallon freshwater tank and a 15-gallon gray water tank. 2 USB-C ports and 1 standard household outlet are said to be wired into the dinette wall, run off the house battery rather than the vehicle's starter battery, so charging a laptop overnight won't leave anyone stranded in the morning. Driver assist features are said to include adaptive cruise, lane centering, and a 360-degree camera system, carried over from Toyota's current safety suite rather than engineered new for this platform. But none of that explains the number that started circulating in Onfer forums the moment the first spy photos leaked, a number we're coming back to before this video ends. On price, Toyota hasn't confirmed a single dollar figure, and anyone telling you otherwise right now is guessing. What multiple sources close to early dealer briefings have floated is a starting estimate somewhere in the upper $60,000 range, climbing past $80,000 for a fully loaded build with the solar package and off-road suspension upgrade. Figures that remain entirely unofficial until Toyota says otherwise. Who is this actually built for? Based on everything reported so far, it lands squarely with young couples who want weekend trips without towing something the size of a house, solo travelers chasing quiet corners of national parks, retirees looking to downsize out of a bigger rig they no longer want to maintain, remote workers who need a real bed and a real desk without living out of a van conversion held together with plywood, and weekend travelers who just want to disappear for 2 nights without a 3-hour setup process when they arrive. It's not built for family of 5. It was never trying to be. So here's what I want from you before we close this out. Drop a comment telling me who you think this camper was actually built for, because based on the messages I've already gotten about this build, the answer surprises more people than you'd expect. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because the next reveal in this video is the one that's been sitting in my notes for 2 weeks. Now, back to that 11-day number. According to one technician who worked briefly on the program, that figure doesn't tell the whole story. Underneath the floor, hidden behind a service panel most reviewers never bothered to open, sits a second, smaller battery bank, one that wasn't listed on any spec sheet that's circulated publicly. It was mentioned almost in passing, like the technician assumed everyone already knew. Nobody did. And in at least one documented test run, that hidden second bank pushed the total time off-grid from 11 days past 16, nearly 2.5 weeks without a single hookup, in something you could still park in a normal driveway. Picture that for a second. Parked at the edge of nowhere, no cell signal, no porch light for miles, and the only thing standing between you and 18 days out there is a battery pack nobody thought was worth putting on a spec sheet. That's the detail nobody expected. Not the shower, not the reading nook. A battery bank Toyota apparently didn't think was worth mentioning in the brochure. Taken as a whole, this is an elegant answer to a problem most manufacturers haven't even bothered acknowledging, that going further off-grid has always meant getting bigger, heavier, and harder to park. If even half of what's been reported here holds up once this thing is officially confirmed, the TerraX might end up being the most remarkable small camper engineering Toyota has attempted in years. Whether it lives up to any of that is still an open question. Everything here is early, unofficial, and subject to change the moment Toyota actually says something on the record. But if the reports are even close to accurate, this is a build worth watching. So tell me, one word in the comments for what you just saw. I'll read as many as I can and pin my favorite. And if you want to see the camper people are already calling this one's closest rival in size, that video is coming next. See you there.